And we welcome you on this historic night at the Women's College World Series in Oklahoma City. This is In the Circle Live. I'm Eric Lopez. Victor Anderson will join us later from Oklahoma City on this historic night where we have seen a perfect game at the Women's College World Series for the first time in 21 years, thrown by Montana Fouts on her 21st birthday. And oh, by the way, we see the first unseeded team ever to start 2-0 at the Women's College World Series, highlighted by one of the greatest plays in the history of the Women's College World Series, made by Odyssey Alexander. Outside of that, how was your evening, ladies and gentlemen? I'm Eric Lopez. Joining me, as you can see, the MAC head coach of the year. She knows a thing or two about postseason and softball. Of course, led Miami of Ohio this year to the NCAA tournament. Speak of Kirin Kumar, head coach of Miami, Ohio, joining us here and In the Circle. And, man, you picked a historic night to join us.
Hey, I'm all about that. I'm rooting for the little, the little teams, and I'm a night owl, so this is the perfect night.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, let's get into it first. Let's just saw the history we just saw here. Montana Fouts, perfect game, the first in the Women's College World Series in 21 years. This is the fifth Women's College World Series of ever. Courtney Blades of Southern Miss did it against Arizona back in 2000. What stood out to you about Montana Fouts to where she was literally unhittable against the defending national champions?
She just has a whole different postseason play. I mean, everything she was throwing is working. I know afterwards she was like, she didn't have a lot of control or command of her pitches, but man, I mean, she's on a different level. Her ball is moving. She's throwing gas. It's unbelievable to watch.
And UCLA had no answers. She is throwing BB guns. She only had a 2-hitter last night against Arizona. She's locked it into a different level here. I don't think anybody in the planet could have hit Montana Fouts today with the stuff she had. Do you? I mean, I don't really think it would have mattered what adjustments you make.
No, I mean, she just if you adjust to her high pitch, she's going low. If you adjust, to the inside, she's going out. So she has a little bit of everything, and that's the toughest thing to hit. So no answers from some of the best teams in the entire country. She was literally unhittable.
What'd you make of the Alabama? They got off to a fast start on UCLA, took a 2-0 lead early. Kind of a confusing play. Bailey Henfeld drills a ball to right field. UCLA's playing in right field out defensively there. That kind of confused me. Did it confuse you there? What was the thinking there, you think?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I could think of is that they wanted to stop the play at the plate, but I don't know how many ground balls that Hemphill hits. So I haven't looked at the scouting report, but it confused me because I think that they would have been able to catch that if they weren't in, but we're not. It's being a Monday night quarterback right now, and they obviously have their reasons to do that. Coach Perez is a national champion, so she knows what she's doing. Sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't.
Right. The only thing I can think of is, and sometimes this, you're playing for the pitcher to hit a certain spot, and you don't expect the ball to be hit that way, that far, right? That's probably a location that was missed there where the pitch went, and it kind of got burned them defensively. You buy that theory?
I don't know because it's Hemphill. So
yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I think if she's facing Montana Fouts, I'm not sure I'm in either. But that's just me, and that's after the fact. So what happens if she bloops it in front of her, right? All of us would say, oh, they shouldn't have been so far back. So I don't know. I don't know why they were in, but it didn't work.
No, it did not. Nothing worked for UCLA tonight. Rachel Garcia, 6 runs, tying her for the most runs she's given up in her career. Why was Alabama so successful against Rachel Garcia, especially after what we have seen from her in the last couple of starts where she shut out Virginia Tech in Game 3 of the Supers and then Game 1 again Florida State on Thursday night? How was Alabama successful against her?
So I think they swung early. I think that's kind of why Virginia Tech was successful the first day in that game, is that they were swinging early. And I think that when they kind of don't wait for her to throw her pitch. That's kind of what I saw. And then it seemed to work, right away and jumping on her. So that's kind of my takeaway from her. And they made her pay when she made a mistake, right? If she put it there down the middle, they made her pay for that.
Montana Fouts, by the way, as Jacob points out, has thrown 14 innings and has faced only one over the minimum. It's incredible.
That's insane. I mean, she's on a different level right now.
Here's the frightening thing. Alabama, with this win, they move to Sunday. They get a day off. She gets a day to rest. And they'll be in the one win away from playing for the national championship. This could not have worked out better for Patrick Murphy in Alabama from that standpoint here, where you've got Fouts, you riding, and now she gets a day off and is going to be ready to go on Sunday against whoever ends up playing them in the regional, in the semifinal.
Yeah, I don't think she cares if she has a day off or not, but everybody knows that that's good for any pitcher. And I also don't think she cares who she faces. So yeah, that's it's very, very, I mean, she's incredible. It's fun to watch as a fan.
You've had a long winning streak this year with Miami of Ohio. I'm kind of curious because you're right. Alabama's won 20 in a row. She's on a roll. Do you want a day off when you're on a roll? Would you rather just keep playing? What's the mindset there when you're kind of playing as high of a level as they are right now?
I mean, it depends. Like, yeah, sometimes you want a day off and sometimes you don't. And I think right now for her and for anybody, it's like you might not want a day off because you're feeling good, but you're going to feel even better when you have the day off. So, she's on a roll. I don't think the day off is going to affect it at all.
So if you're UCLA, you just got perfect gamed.
Has that ever happened in the history of UCLA?
Wow, that's a great question. That's a good question.
The whole time I'm watching it, nobody's saying it, but I just don't know who would have perfect game UCLA ever.
I didn't see it on the list that they showed for the Women's College World Series. I don't think it's happened in the Women's College World Series. I don't know how many times it's happened, if at all, period. Yeah. It's a great point, though, with their history and tradition. It's probably very far and few in between. And if they did, it was probably by Arizona and, a Jenny Coates or somebody like that.
Right. And I don't even know if that happened.
Right. We don't know. All we know is there's a fifth perfect game in the history of the Women's College World Series. And my question now is they got to come back, play an elimination game on Saturday, potentially against Oklahoma. Holy macro. I mean, it's going to be the winner of Oklahoma, Georgia. So let's not discount Georgia, but we can't also ignore the fact we could have the 2019 national championship rematch in an elimination game Saturday night if Oklahoma takes care of Georgia. Wow. That is crazy. If you're UCLA, how do you bounce back from getting literally perfect game?
Man, I don't know. If you know the answer to that, all us coaches want to know. But I think they're just gonna have to forget about it. That's they're just really gonna have to forget about it. Let it go in, let it go out, and go on to the next team. So that's kind of what I would tell my team.
The positive is you got to play tomorrow. That's the one positive of playing tomorrow, right? You just put it. Yes. It's easier to put it behind you instead of waiting for 2 to 3 days. But man, that's just wild. And they've faced adversity coming here with Faremo out. We don't know when she'll be back, if she comes back. She's in Southern California looking for exams in her right hand that's injured. The Bruins are shorthanded pitching wise here, and now they got to win an elimination game on Saturday night, and then and if they win that, got to win twice on Sunday. That is a tall order for this Bruins team in the champs right now.
It is, but I'm never going to discount them, especially Rachel Garcia. I mean, if she needs to put her team on the back, she will. So, when adrenaline hits and a pitcher at that caliber, I'm not going to put anything past her.
Well, let's move to the other game, the opening game, which was a dramatic game. James Madison and Oklahoma State, JMU with a 2-1 victory. Wow, this game got crazy in the seventh inning. I mean, Kate Gordon with a home run early in the game, her third home run of the postseason, gave them the lead. Oklahoma State threatened, and then we get to the seventh inning, and that's where all heck breaks loose. I don't even know where to begin with that, except let's start with the play that would have been very controversial had Oklahoma State come back to win, and that was the play with Oklahoma State having the runner on. They get the Oklahoma State runner on a pickoff at second base and third. JMU probably didn't really execute that well, did they? Let's start with the too many throws back and forth there. That should have been taken care of sooner, shouldn't it?
Yeah, so everyone says that it should be one or two throws, to get somebody out. I don't know if that's always reasonable. The runner did a great job of keeping in as long as possible to get that other runner back to second. So they would have been in the same exact situation that they would have been in if she had thrown to first. So it wasn't the best executed, but I thought it was fantastic that Odyssey turned and saw how far she was off and got her in the rundown to start with.
So they're in the rundown, but the umpires call obstruction. They say that the runner got bumped into the defensive player. There was contact, and so as a result, they rule obstruction. What did you think live when you saw it?
Well, at first I was like, oh my gosh, it's not obstruction. What are you doing? But when you watch it, she did run into her. So it's one of those things as a runner, when someone lets go, you kind of run at them. I don't think she did it on purpose. You're supposed to get out of the way. So in the end, I think they got that call right. None of us wanted that call made because I thought she was going to be out regardless. But what can you do?
Here's my counter to that. I think there was some contact, but it looked to me it was accidental. What is a defensive player supposed to do there? How do you you're supposed to? I know you're trying to get away, but you're trying to also get the runner out here. I feel like I understand the rule, how it's written, but I feel like it's not properly interpreted. Like that wasn't like she purposely interfered with her. The runner actually ran into her. Like if you're going to call that, my argument is if I'm a runner, I'm going to try to run into a defender every time I get so I can get that call.
Yeah, and I think that's what people teach. Like they teach them to go after that one. It's not illegal or anything like that, but it's also like even if it's accidental, right? If you run into a runner when fielding your ground ball and you can't get out of the way, they still have to call it, right? So I don't know if they can determine if it's accidental or on purpose, right? Obstruction calls at the plate all the time. I don't think anyone does it on purpose. It's just they're trying to get somebody out. So I don't like it, but I think they did make the right call.
Would you like to see the rule changed?
Yes,
because what would you do? What would you do? Would you get rid of it completely? Would you tweak it? What would you do?
I would tweak it. I'm not sure exactly how I would tweak it, but something has to change because sometimes the ball is right there. It's kind of an easy out sometimes to call obstruction instead of having to make a close bang bang call at the plate. The game before was Oklahoma State, Georgia. There was a play at the plate where obstruction wasn't called, and then the second one was. So it has to be more universal all the way around.
And
it can't be subjective.
And that's the biggest issue. This is subjective. One umpire calls it, one doesn't. It just gets too confusing. One of our listeners or people who are tuning in right now, I think Jacob says, I think it was a textbook obstruction with the way the rule is currently written, but I hate the rule, not sure how to change it, but we just need to let them play. That's my sentiment. I would have hated, and I have no dog in the fight here. I have friends on both sides, both coaches. I've had no Coach Gajewski, and so I don't care who wins. I just hate a game to be decided by an obstruction rule. That would have had a bad taste in everybody's mouth, and I think it's a bad sign when the majority of social media's reactions like, oh, you can't call that. Whether it's the right rule or not, that's not the way you want your sport to end, as we'll talk about. Fortunately, it did not affect the result of the game. But that's, to me, my biggest concern is, can you imagine if that was a national championship game and that call decides it? I think everybody would have had a bad taste in their mouth there.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of a balancing thing, and I'm not sure what it is. Obstruction went way to this way, and it was called all the time. Then they kind of stopped calling it. Now it's in between, but I think it has to be kind of like, it has to be this. This is what obstruction is. And right now it's not that. And that's the part that's really frustrating. you can go to one game and it's called and another game it's not, because it is subjective. So how do we fix it? I think we make it where it can be determined every single time.
And it wasn't an egregious play. Like a casual
No.
person is watching it. I don't think they're even thinking about it. You know, what they're probably thinking, what are you calling? What do you call obstruction? What is that? You know, I don't think it was an egregious play where everybody's like, yeah, that definitely affected the play. That's my issue with that. But it is what it is. By the way, this tells you how good fans we got here and in the circle here, Coach. Jesse James chimes in. I had to do a little research, but Sean Andea threw a perfect game against UCLA in the 1987 Women's College World Series. There you go. You wanted it. You were curious. 1987. It's a little while back.
Yep, that's good to know, because I mean, in my history, I don't ever remember it happening.
Well, now you know why, because it happened a long time ago. That were my time. Before even I covered the sport.
Research.
Hey, we got fans. That's what our fans are about, man. They help us out. Always when we do the podcast and the live show, they chime in and help us out. So I appreciate that very much. So that obstruction call, back to that play now, it's 2nd and 3rd. Nobody out. I mean, and it's very tight, but Odyssey Alexander gets out of it. Let's start, the first play, she induces a foul out down the left field line. The ball wasn't deep enough. You can't tag up there. There's the first out. And then the play that we'll remember from this game and we'll remember from this World Series, Oklahoma State calls the squeeze play. Even Scarborough was kind of hinting at that. Any issues, first of all, with the squeeze play call there?
I think everyone knew it was coming. I called it before it happened. He gave a sign, and I'm like, squeeze is coming. Again, not if it worked, it was great. But 1 out, 2nd and 3rd, 2-hole up to bat. I think it was 2-hole, right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. The squeeze was coming. So I don't know. I don't not like it, but I also think it was kind of predictable. So, I mean, Odyssey said it too. It
was predictable.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was surprised by the call. I would have let hitter hit away. You had some momentum there. But at the same time, I understand you're trying to tie the game up. Maybe you're trying to force the play. It shows me a lot of respect they have for Odyssey, right?
Oh,
like,
absolutely.
If you feel confident you could hit her, you're probably not going for the butt to squeeze there.
Absolutely. And the other thing is, it was, maybe if it was to the left, to the right. But the one question I have is, was it a safety squeeze? I don't know if the runner broke on the pitch or she broke when it was put down on the ground. And that's the only thing that I kind of have a little, I guess, question about it. If you're going to squeeze. Don't do a safety squeeze. So that's the one question I have.
The other issue is, would you have an issue with the ball where it was placed? They bunted it towards the third base side. And, if you bunt that towards the first base side, I don't think she can make that play.
I don't know if, like, when you're squeezing, if a lot of people are really placing the ball or you're just trying to get it down.
You just want to get the contact, because what you don't want is the runner to get caught.
Yeah, I don't want to double play if it's in the air. I mean, I think literally she's just trying to, okay, where's the pitch? Put it down on the ground. So that's my take. Doesn't mean that's what she was doing.
Yeah. By the way, it was Chelsea Alexander, the number 9 hitter that took the squeeze. I just double checked myself. So it was actually the number 9 hitter, Chelsea Alexander, that tried the bunt. That's right, because Kylie Naomi made the last out of the game. So the number 9 hitter. So that's part of it. And I think that's probably why you kind of saw it coming. It's the bottom of the order. If you're going to do the squeeze, you do it with the bottom of the order a lot of times, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, again, it was also 1 out, runner on 2nd and 3rd. That is the best time to squeeze, right? So, but I think everyone knew it was coming. Odyssey said she knew something was going to happen, and that's she was prepared for it.
That being said, it was a heck of a play by Odyssey Alexander. Let's describe that play, because she's charging, grabs it with her glove, dives, and on instincts, and makes the tag. That was an insane play. Just describe from what you saw, your vantage point, how she was going to pull that off.
One of the best plays, I think, ever. Not in the World Series, ever. So she's picking up the ball, and you see it all the time. The toss could be bad. The girl has to catch it and tag. I think this was the only way she was going to be out. is the only way. And competitors want the ball and want to do everything for themselves, and that's what Odyssey is. She's a hands down competitor, and she wanted to make that play, and that was a heck of a play. I will rewatch that over and over again.
You and everybody in the state of Virginia is going to be watching that for a long time. I mean, I think it's the greatest play in the history of JMU athletics. I mean, that's a play that's going to be remembered. That game, that's going to define that game. It's just, and I'm watching it right now on social media. I mean, people went nuts on this play. And the thing is, because I would say, don't you think a lot of pitchers there would try to toss it just quickly out of desperation? They would just, that would be the instincts. Oh, let me just grab it and toss it quickly. But she didn't. She felt her best play is to grab it with the glove and try to make the tag. That's great instincts and great, and I think she peeked at the runner, and I think she felt she could make that, she could do it. Instead of rushing the play, it's just an amazing athletic play. Maybe the best play I've ever seen any pitcher make.
Yeah, she said she saw out of the peripheral of her eye, she saw the runner. So, I mean, if a competitor, she said it also, I was not going to let her score. Right? So do you put it in your own hands? Do you toss it? Bad toss, umpire, obstruction, all those things, right? And she just put it in her own hands and did everything she could to make that happen.
It's breathtaking. It's a breathtaking play. It's the play of the tournament. And look, if James Madison ends up playing for the national championship, that's the play that we're going to remember. That's the play we're going to remember, because without that play, who knows? It's a tie game. Oklahoma State has the momentum. But, wow, they make the play. A devastating loss for Oklahoma State. And JMU wins it. What's been your thoughts here on Lauren Laporte and what they've done here in this run? They win the Knoxville Regional. They come and win the Supers at Missouri. They come beat Oklahoma, and they beat Oklahoma State both in Oklahoma City.
Yeah, so I will start with I think the people who know softball and know about JMU and Coach Laporte know that they're not a Cinderella. They've been to Supers 3 years in a row. Okay. And I think in 2019, Odyssey only lost one game, right? But she was pitching behind Megan Good. That team is made for this. And so the run that I think they believe it. Like, they believe it 100%, and that's all they need to do is to go out there, and every single one of us mid-majors is rooting for them. Every single one from the day they got sent to regionals and got out of it. So hats off to them. Keep going. All of us are rooting for you.
You're right. That is a tremendous play. Here's a point. Rob makes a great point that's tuning in. After watching the play at home, I have a hard time believing Alexander didn't hurt her pitching shoulder on that play. That's a thing that's got forgotten in all this. She could have gotten hurt on that play. Like, that's a heroic play. If she lands awkwardly, she hurts herself, but she just executed that even perfectly. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, I think another thing that gamers do or competitors is they don't really think about that, right? Where if some people are going to be like, oh my gosh, I'm going to get hurt, so they're not going to make a play, where that's not the first thing that came to her mind. Her mind was like, I'm not going to let her score. And she did. She landed like this. I think that's why she had to take a second. She had tears in her eyes, and that wasn't going to stop her from finishing that game. Right. So she had to get her composure back. But yeah, I mean, I think also, Montana Fouts would have done the same thing. I don't know, like, just the way she's fighting, and you can just see those two pitchers would do anything.
And then she still has to get one more out, and she got Naomi to pop up to basically end it and hold on to a 2-1 win. I mean, that's the thing that's remarkable. She got out of a second and third jam, nobody out, and preserved the victory. Wow. So if you're Oklahoma State now, that is a crushing loss. Kenny Gajewski, I watched him in the press conference. It was a tough one to take. How do you bounce back from a heartbreaker like that? They got to come back and play for their season against Arizona tomorrow on Elimination Saturday. How do you bounce back from that?
One thing I would talk to them is that, hey, what can we learn from that? Yes, it's tough. in softball, you can't be too high, you can't be too low, right? Like same with, you got to learn from it, let it go, and let's get ready for the next game. It's a lot easier said than done, right? So what can you do is that you let them know that it's one pitch at a time, one game. What happened in the past is not going to define you. What happens now?
Oklahoma State carry Eberle started, got pulled. They brought in Maxwell, who did a great job in relief, keeping him in the game. What did you see from the Oklahoma State pitchers there? They only gave up 2 runs. I don't think they could be too upset, but Carey wasn't as dominant as she's been in the past, in particular against Texas in the Supers. And even the Georgia game, I thought she was a little better. But JMU jumped on her early, but still, Maxwell, I thought, did a nice job coming in relief, and that could be a big factor for them if they're able to make a run here out of the losers bracket.
Yeah, so nowadays, like having a 1-2 punch, a 1-AB, it's big, especially, probably with the heat in Oklahoma and everything. But the one thing I think people forget was the one run that was scored was a error, right? It was a 2-out grounder to Eberle, right? And so I thought she pitched a great game. I don't think she pitched worse or better. There was that one pitch to Kate Gordon, that went over. But in the end, I mean, I thought she pitched a great game. And it was just one.
Do you think Eberle should have thrown that ball? You mentioned that error. That was what got him that first run. And it was interesting. Christy Fox, we had on last night, mentioned from what she saw, she would not be surprised if JMU and other teams try to force Eberle to make some plays on her own because of her kind of awkward. She looks awkward at times throwing the ball to first, so they try to pressure her, and it gave JMU a run there. Would you have held the ball there if you're Eberle?
So I mean, she's kind of done that for a little while, but I think she should have thrown it. She's made that play before. It's not that. I mean, if she just held it, if we get the out, no one talks about it, right?
Right.
So I think that she kind of rushed it a little bit. Nothing there. It's kind of like that throw to second base the day before. But, yeah, I think she made the right decision to throw it, and it just didn't end up working. I also think that Oklahoma State's probably used to scoring more than 2 runs. So, but I still think she pitched a great game.
I want to ask you about Oklahoma State because obviously Eberle's had a great year. Maxwell's had a good year. John Barfield, who you know very well, you've worked with him, worked under him at Tulsa, is in the pitching coach. I asked Kenny Gajewski after they beat Texas in the Supers about John going to the Women's College World Series for the first time in his career, and Kenny broke down. He said outside of the players, there was no more person he was more excited for than John. And he said, they even joked that he, as emotional he got, he was trying to hug him. John was very low key, after the third out to get there. Talk about the job he's done, because I think he's done a heck of a job with that pitching staff and has helped Oklahoma State kind of take that next step in the program here where they're a top 5 seed. You know him as well as anybody. The impact he's made there. You're not surprised by the words that Kenny has said that, Kenny says he's made him a better coach.
Oh, I think he makes everybody around him better, John. Everybody. That's kind of why I'm where I'm at. When they won to go to the World Series, I knew John wasn't gonna be. He's like this. It doesn't matter what, when, where. So it's to see him get excited. It's a big deal, and I am so happy for him. And what he's done with the app, I mean, I don't know how to put it. There's like a calmness behind him that no matter what's going on, that he's going to be able to take that to the team and to the pitchers. So I am probably one of the most excited people to see him there.
Yeah, I think a lot of people that have covered him, I've covered him obviously since the CUSA days in 2007. I think it's one of the more underreported stories up in Oklahoma City is him there. I know that I've talked to Justin McLeod, who you know from Justin's World, and he was voted the assistant coach of the year, national coach of the year from Justin because of the job he's done there. Really an amazing coach. I was happy to see him in Oklahoma City. Unfortunately, though, for him, not the result he would have liked tonight, although he's used to a 2-1 tight game there where he can appreciate a good defensive play. But let me ask you this. As somebody who's the head coach at Miami of Ohio, you got a 3 seed in Lexington, won the MAC, but you're fighting for respect. you gotta be pleased with this run that JMU here is making here, kind of making a statement representing a lot of people beyond JMU.
Oh yeah, they're representing all the the mid majors, showing that. You know how many times we've been told, "Oh, we want to go Power 5." I mean, it's still happening right now, right? Or you got a really good player like they transfer, right? Because they want to go to. So what they're showing everybody is that what you want to do can be done at whatever school you want done. So it's this run right here is showing that it's not just about the big dogs. And they've proven it year after year. And now finally people are seeing it. I'm glad people are seeing it. So what they've done, we're all cheering for them.
When I got to imagine, too, it's going to help people like you. Like when you meet up with your team in the fall, you could point to this moment right here and say, look, we could beat the JMU. We could beat anybody. There's no, there should be no, oh, well, I don't know if we could do that or that. It's been proven there. And I think this should be inspiring to a lot of programs out there. And I think it could open some eyes from a selection process, from a ranking standpoint in the pollsters and things like that, hey, there's a lot of great softball beyond the major power conferences, or as I call it, the mainstream 5. I think there's a lot of great softball in your league. You and Ball State, really two strong teams in the MAC among other teams. Obviously, JMU's had a great year. You got the American, as you know very well, with UCFs and the South Florida's, Wichita State. Christy Breadbetter was livid of being sent to Norman. Thought that she had a chance to be a super regional team if you would have gotten a different draw and a better seed thing. UCF Tulsa's had great teams. You've been a part of some of those Tulsa teams that had to go through Norman or Stillwater. I think this is a big, big moment for everybody here, and hopefully it helps the game moving forward on all those aspects.
Well, I think the things, and maybe I can be out of line for saying this, but softball needs to start ranking 1 through 32. So it needs to be 1 through 16 and then this 32nd seed, because it just shows this. Wichita State shouldn't have been sent to OU. That's one. The other thing it shows is it shows that our players should respect by what they do. Where we're being told, oh, well, we didn't play enough things against the top teams. That's sometimes you can't help, you think some teams are going to be better, but it's showing that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. We have great players, countries playing at JMU and Wichita State and Tulsa that they expect also, and JMU is showing that.
We are here in the Circle Live here with Miami of Ohio head coach Kirin Kumar. We're breaking down night 2 here of the Women's College World Series. Coach, you're very popular here. You're getting questions here from our audience. So you're making history. We go. We got one.
I didn't know all these people would stay up.
Hey, you'd be surprised. You'd be surprised. We got loyal softball fans. Hey, listen, how can you not? You just got to be fired up after watching those 2 games. Those late night owls. What are you going to do? Yeah. But we got a question here. One Los Angeles chiming in with a question for you, Coach. Hi, Coach. In hindsight, what approach at the plate could Oklahoma State batters have taken to disrupt Alexander's pitching, given that they have seen her stifle just Oklahoma the day before? Thanks.
Well, it depends. If they had a plan, I don't know what their plan was, right? Did they stick with it? She's done a really good job of going up in the zone. That change up more often. Might have a little bit what got them is that they didn't realize that she was going to use the off speed as often. So I think that's something that you got to relay to everybody. Maybe they didn't think it was the off speed, but that's the adjustment I would is have to on a speed. When someone's throwing hard and someone doing that, you got to pick one speed. It's really tough to hit both at the same time.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the speed there could have been a factor there. So now JMU waits until Sunday. JMU and Alabama is in the driver's seat here. Each of them a win away to play for the National Championship Series. Now we head to Elimination Saturday. I'm curious, what are you looking forward to seeing the most on Elimination Saturday? You got Georgia and Oklahoma is going to start things off at noon. Now, then you're going to have Oklahoma State and Alabama. Oklahoma State and Arizona play. It's way late. I need caffeine. Oklahoma State and Arizona will play. And then the winner of Oklahoma, Georgia, is going to play UCLA, which could be wow. And then the winner of Oklahoma, the Oklahoma State, the winner of Arizona matchup there, in Oklahoma State, that's going to be fascinating to see how this all plays out here on Saturday. What are you looking forward to seeing from that standpoint?
It's Arizona State, Florida State.
Arizona, Florida State. Yeah, thank you. Your caffeine. I'm glad you're here. Okay. So Florida State's got to play Arizona. The winner gets Oklahoma State. There you go.
Yes, correct.
I hate the flip brackets. It drives me nuts.
Yes. The one thing is going to see how they come out. Everybody had those 4 teams had a day off. So so they got a little extra time to scout teams and get ready. And so I just want to see great games, right? Seeing great games. And that's why we watch the game. I want to see if it's a pitcher's duel, if it's hitting. I mean, I will watch whatever it is. So the other thing is how is each team going to adjust, right? Are they going to be playing tight because they might be their last game? Or are they going to just play like, hey, it's another game. We just have to play the way we've been playing. Because obviously all 8 of these teams are great. All 8 of them. So it's going to be a fun day.
If I told you pick one team that's going to play Saturday that can make it to, you feel the most confident can make it to the championship series, who would you pick?
Oh, I think the easy answer is Oklahoma. The reason why is they're playing kind of in their backyard. Patty Gasso is going to have a fire under them. And so I would say Oklahoma because of that. Don't bet against Patty Gasso. But I think any one of these teams, that's why they're there. It'll be tough, right? I think only 2 teams have done it, right?
Yeah, Florida State, 2018. I was there when they did it. And I think one other team, you're right, did it. The interesting thing with Oklahoma, they went with Shannon Sale on Thursday. Who do they go with against Georgia, who they played earlier this year? They played in Athens. They split. Florida State and Arizona, which I mentally blocked out for some reason, because they played 3 times earlier this year in Tallahassee. What do you think? How much of a factor is that going to be in the games tomorrow? That these two games, those teams know each other because they've played.
Oh, it's kind of like a conference series, right? If you're playing a team 3 or 4 times, it depends on how the last one is. I think that they're going to have a good scout on each other and what they do against each other, but I don't know if it's going to make a difference because the World Series is a whole different level. So I do that playing as big as as they are going to know what each other's going to be doing. It's a whole different atmosphere.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting atmosphere to say the least there. You got choppy there, by the way, at the end there. Okay. So we kind of want to make sure that we got more questions for you. Wow, you become we don't need Victor. See, we don't need Victor to come in. The people we got MIW has a question. Hi, Coach. If you were a batter facing Fouts, what strategy would you recommend to overcome her dominant pitching?
Take 3 swings. I think sometimes hitters let one pitch go by. They want to see it. And I think with Fouts, I'm going up there and I'm taking hacks, 3 hacks, not just 1. So sometimes the first good pitch you see, you want to take it. That's what I would do. Because, once she gets 1 strike on you, it's going to be up or down. So I'm going to take my 3 good hacks.
Well, the thing is, she's pounding the strike zone. She's she's not walking anybody, right? So that's why you maybe have to be aggressive and turn on one like Jesse Harper did in the 7th inning. Otherwise, she would have had 2 shutouts right now in Oklahoma City. So sounds to me you got to be aggressive when a pitcher's like that hot because she's pounding the strike zone and maybe you could jump on her early.
Absolutely. I mean, that's when you have a pitcher like that. might give you one good pitch, and then you don't let it go, even if it's the first pitch. So yeah, I think you go hacking.
That's easier said than done, but hey, try something different there, to say the least, on that. So we'll see what happens with that. Now, the question that a lot of people were asking on social media after the Alexander play, the Jessie Warren play in 2018, which I saw in person, game 1, where she makes the play on the bunt in the air, double play. Florida State would win 1-0, go on to win the championship. Or Odyssey Alexander, which is the better play in the Women's College World Series? Is it the Warren play or the Alexander? Which one would you pick?
I'm going to say the Alexander one, because here's why I'm going to say Alexander. The team has never been there before. They weren't supposed to beat Oklahoma. They now playing Oklahoma State in Oklahoma with the runner on second and third, nobody out. And that's what I'm going to say.
Man, I'm still biased towards the Warren play. Victor's on your side on that. He's the one that addressed that question. He thinks it's the best play ever. I'm going to discuss that with him. I think it's still the Warren play. But I will say, I mean, the Alexander, it's the best play I've ever seen a pitcher make in any sport. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if whoever's – it's unbelievable.
Why do you think Warren?
Well, because the Warren play, the ball is in the air. It's going away from her. She dives, makes the play. If she doesn't come up with that, Washington has 2 on, nobody out. That championship could change completely. Washington may end up winning that game and win the national title. I think it's a more difficult play than Alexander. We're pulling hairs here, but I think it's a slight edge on that one. But I think Alexander is right there as far as the best play from a pitching standpoint. I think Warren has the slight edge because, again, if you watch that play, the ball is going away from her. She dives, makes the play, then throws to first, turns the double play. Has the instincts to do that. Unbelievable.
Well, Alexander, if she doesn't make that play, the game is tied, and now you don't have a quote-unquote unseeded team win 2-0 or go 2-0, and they still have a runner on third with the tie ball game. She also got up to look at the other runner, the trail runner.
They did.
I don't know if you she tagged her, got up, and looked at. So I don't know. I mean, they're both fantastic.
Yeah, it's insane. By the way, people agreeing with your approach, Jacob, saying teams have been successful against Fouts this year when swinging early. But I think this Fouts is in another level right now. That could be true. She could be in a different level right now. I mean, you would think at some point she comes back to earth, but maybe not. I mean, she might just ride this into a memorable performance right now. I mean, the interesting thing, it's her and Alexander right now are the 2 best players in the World Series. Would you agree?
Right. Agreed.
That's a remarkable story in itself. That's a remarkable story in itself in that deal. How confident do you feel? You look at JMU and Alabama. If I told you tonight, all right, are those 2 teams going to end up playing for the national title, or you're going to take the field? Which one would you take? Would you take, those 2 are going to play for the national title, or are you going to say, you know what, somebody else is going to crash the party and play for the national title that's not James Madison or Alabama?
I'm going to take James Madison and Alabama only because Fouts and Alexander are playing on, and so I think it's going to take a lot to beat those 2 twice.
Right. Tough to ride a momentum there. Alexander has proven that she could pitch back-to-back games. I don't think she's going to be fazed by that. And Alabama, it'll be interesting what Coach Murphy does. You know, does he throw Fouts in that first game on Sunday and try to wrap it up there? Does he throw Kilfoy, who has had a good postseason herself, and try to go 1-2 punch? But we got more questions for you. Wow, you're the most popular coach ever in the history of the show. I've never had a guest get these many questions. But a question for you here. Can you discuss how the squeeze play is supposed to work? I think the runner is supposed to be crossing the plate before the defense gets to the ball if it's executed properly. Is that correct? Your response to that? How is it supposed to work?
I mean, it's supposed to work where she's safe and she scores, but I think you're supposed to go on the pitch And I don't know if she did. I think she waited to see if the ball was down before she went. I would have to go back and look at that.
Because the fear as a runner is if the ball's popped in the air and it's caught, you're doubled off, right? That's the ultimate fear. So sometimes as a runner, you might be a little more conservative, especially with less than 2 outs.
Correct. So I'm not saying that that's what happened. I have to go back and see it. But based on what happened, I that's what I'm thinking, because she has really good speed. So
well, and there's the other thing is there's multiple variations of a squeeze play. There's the safety squeeze, where the runner doesn't necessarily go on contact, right? Like sometimes you call the safety. Describe the difference, for example, of a safety squeeze versus the quote unquote suicide squeeze.
So suicide squeeze to me is the kid is going off the pitch, on the throw, going no matter what happens. If she's in the air, it's a double play. Nothing you can do. The safety squeeze can happen one or two ways. One is when you see the ball down on contact, then you take off. The second one would be that the ball is down and you're not going, and if they make the throw, you go, or they don't make a throw and everybody's safe. So that's what the difference would be.
That's interesting. See, that's a good explanation. I've not heard that from the safety squeeze standpoint, because I've seen that so many times where a team puts the bunt down, but the runner doesn't go. Is the goal there is to try to get an extra base runner on base, or are you trying to put some pressure on the defense to make a decision whether they're going to throw to first or not? What's the strategy if you call a safety squeeze?
Safety squeeze would be one to try to get another base runner. So, because everyone will be worried about the runner at home, so they don't throw to first. So now you got more runners. The other reason would be that you don't 100% trust that she's going to get the ball down. So that would be another reason to do a safety squeeze.
So fascinating. That's what's so great about softball. There's so many ways to kind of do it from that standpoint. There's so many different, strategies within the game from a small ball standpoint and things like that. I think is so fantastic, and what makes this game the game so great. And a lot of people are watching, Coach. A lot big time TV numbers. They mentioned it on the telecast. It is right. They are a monster numbers right now. People are watching this in record numbers here. Thursday, I believe the JMU Oklahoma game was the most watched first game of a Women's College World Series ever. The Thursday night average was like the third best ever, the best ever since 2009. There's a lot of momentum here for the sport here. People are catching on to it. I've always said this, that softball right now is the most popular, probably the third most popular sport from a TV standpoint, behind football and men's basketball. It out-rates college baseball. College baseball started today. There is no buzz. It's all about softball.
Yeah. And what all of us have known for a long, long time that this is what softball is. We're now getting the platform for the entire country to see that. So I am so happy that's gonna continue on. So we had it on. What was it? The Oklahoma Washington game was on ABC. I think I had every TV I had on ABC. They said that was the second most watched game.
Yes.
Behind the 2012 Super Regional. Which Super Regional game watched?
Well, no. Well, I think what they said was that the Super Regional round, the whole Super Regional was an average was the highest rated Super Regional since 2012. And I know this because I've written about this. That Super Regional game, Oklahoma and Washington, which did about 901,000, is the second highest rated Super Regional game. The highest rated Super Regional game is Alabama versus Texas, 2019. It did 1 million viewers, in 5,000. That was a game 3 on ESPN. And it was a tight game. I think if Oklahoma-Washington would have had a tighter game, or if that was a game 3, it would have broken that record. I remember that because I wrote that article about Alabama-Texas 2 years ago, because I do a lot of TV articles. In fact, I'm going to write one for Justin's World here when Justin has a chance to catch his breath. But that's the second highest rated Super Regional game ever, was that Oklahoma-Washington, behind that Alabama-Texas game, which was a phenomenal Super with so many storylines and obviously the brands with Texas and Alabama.
Do you think they should have put a like 8 versus 9 instead of a 1
No.
versus 16? I don't know. I'm
No.
just curious about that.
No, I think the star power matchup is Oklahoma and Washington, two big time programs.
Yep.
Oklahoma, obviously, with the historic offense. I think that was like if you were going to make the argument, maybe LSU, Florida State, but everybody was going to talk about Oklahoma, Washington. That was the one everybody was talking about. I think that's the decision, and I don't think they regret that decision. I think they did very well. I do think, by the way, we're going to see more games on ABC moving forward, and I think the next step is going to be you're going to see games from Oklahoma City, the Women's College World Series, going to ABC. Look at this, who just popped out of nowhere. It's Victor Anderson, everybody. Back home.
Hey!
There we go. Say hi to Coach there, Vic.
As a coach, or as our favorite WWE fan will relate to, the head of the Max softball table, Coach Charles Kirin Kumar.
How you doing,
Wow.
Dick?
I'm doing good, Coach. Very interesting night that we got to see this evening in Oklahoma City. So pretty fun to see, none to say.
Coach is
right?
popular right now. Coach is, he's there. He's been at the World. He's now at the hotel, so he just got back from the stadium. Coach has been asked like 3 questions here. Like everybody's just people care what she thinks, not what we think, Vic.
Well, isn't that the point of the show? Let the guests be the stars of the show, or we just sit back and let them do what they do. That's the whole point.
Amen to that. Amen to that. By the way, in fact, we've had our audiences help us out. Coach, you asked about the pinch runner. Scotland David, the pinch runner here, getting from our viewers, appeared to hesitate for a millisecond. Probably the difference on that play. That's what some of the audience there that went back and watched the play. You were asking about, hey, I got to watch the play. That's some of the feedback we're getting there. Half a second. What do you think that? And that might have been what you mentioned. She's worried about that ball being caught. She probably hesitated instead of going on the pitch, and that's the difference, right? If you're going to go on contact, you got to go, right?
Yeah, so the hesitation, like I think the Georgia kid was out at home, the right fielder, Oklahoma State, Bugsby threw her out. But as you watch the play, she hesitated around third. So we always teach our kids, if you hesitate, don't go. It's better to just go back to the base than to get out because of it. But if it was just a millisecond, I mean, I'm not sure that made that big of a difference. But in a squeeze play, it does.
It's crazy that we're dissecting this play by inch. It's insane. And both fan bases are going to be dissecting that play maybe for a long time, depending on what happens here the rest of the weekend, because that's a crushing loss for Oklahoma State and an amazing win for JMU there. All right, I'm going to give you your last thoughts here because we've kept you almost an hour. You're like a marathon here. That's pretty wild. So give me your thoughts here as the remainder of the weekend. That's true. Well, and we'll have to bring you in for like WrestleMania weekend, and we'll just go for hours and hours on that one. That's a whole other story. But
I'm good at that. Softball and wrestling.
You heard it, Vic. You heard it. Mark it down.
Yes. We're gonna make that happen.
Give me your keys for this weekend for all the teams to be successful and get to the championship series. What are the keys for each team what they need to do to be successful here to advance here the rest of the way?
So let's see. Key for Oklahoma would be just it's 8 a.m. before, and that's who's going to pitch. So it's kind of understanding that even when they get down, they don't have to press. Georgia's going to have to figure out how to keep them off the runs is the most or the least that Oklahoma has scored except for the JMU game, which was 3. So it's going to try to figure out a way to keep them off the board. Let's see. We got, who is it? Arizona?
Well, what? And yeah. Florida State, Arizona, Florida State.
We got Arizona. Be a battle. I think that's going to be a little bit of a high scoring, but I don't know. We'll see on that one. It's limiting the errors, I think, for both teams on that one. So we'll see. The weekend's going to be fun. You hope every single one of them is playing relaxed, but that's not going to happen.
Yeah. All right. Easier said than done. Easier said than done, Coach. All right, Coach, we're going to let you go. I appreciate we lost her. I knew it. Technically, I knew it. You know what that is? I think those are some of the teams there that did not want secrets to come out on Saturday.
Yeah, I know it happens, but appreciate Coach Kumar for joining us this evening.
Either that or Vince McMahon just decided to release her like they did with Braun Strowman.
I don't know. That would be a really stupid idea, but of course, what do we know?
Right. All right. Rob, by the way, has a question for you, Victor. He goes, Hey, Vic, Canada thinks there should be a reseeding after each round. This is something you have brought up. This has been a topic about the reseeding. I don't know.
Well, the reseeding, I've thought about it. I've gone back and forth about it. And we talked about this on a podcast about Division 2, Division 3, how they reseed before they start their World Series. And we've seen sometimes how the reseeding is kind of, to put it lightly, nonsensical. So after giving it much thought, I agree with keeping everybody in their same size of the draw. And hey, who you play is who you play. So that's the nature of the beast, honestly.
What do you think about the crossover thing? Would you get rid of that? Would you try to do it like keep it on the phone, or no?
Well, Abby Trahan, who's pitched for St. Francis, who's pitched for Southern Miss, she brought that up early yesterday morning about on our Twitter page, and I kind of posed a question to some of our followers. Some people like the crossover, some because they say it happens in other 18 double elimination brackets. My thing is that if you're going, I don't mind it, honestly. I just feel that if you're going to do two separate brackets, you keep all the play within the bracket, and then you have the two bracket winners play for the championship as 2 out of 3.
Steve makes a good point here. Why would you reseed? No other tournament does that. And then in the college game, I agree. The only sports that I think of that does it in postseason is like the NHL maybe and the NFL. But they don't reseed. The NFL doesn't reseed. What they do is
they go by highest. They take highest seeded team, take the lowest seeded team, second highest, third. But with the Women's College World Series, where you're playing with 2 brackets, you could do that. And then you take those 4 teams and put them into the 2 brackets. So that might be something that's probably what Steve is talking about.
But isn't JMU proven here that the seeding doesn't matter? Let's be honest. Yeah. If they reseeded the tournament, JMU would have probably still played Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Right?
I agree.
It was either going to be them or Georgia. So I just think it's too much of a headache for no reason. The only thing I don't like is the kind of the flipping of the brackets. I think it makes it a little confusing. Confused, but I think if you did it cleaner, I think it'd be easier for casual fans to follow. But whatever, I get what they're coming from. But let's get your thoughts here, because you just witnessed a pretty historic night in the history of this sport and the history of this event. I thought we were going to dominate with talking about the Odyssey Alexander play, and yet now that's taken a back seat to history. You just saw Montana Fouts throw a perfect game against the defending national champions in UCLA, the first perfect game thrown at the Women's College World Series since Courtney Blades of Southern Miss did it against Arizona in 2000. Wow. Give me your thoughts. I don't think have you ever seen or called a perfect game in your career? First of all,
the closest I've been to calling a perfect game was with Rollins twice. Nikki Fogel had a no-hitter through a perfect game through 6 2/3, lost it on an air with 1 out to go, and then I saw Grace Street on senior weekend, which ended up being my last weekend of broadcasting with Rollins in 2018, get to the pitch 5 2/3 innings of perfect softball and gave up a walk to lose the perfect game. But I've never seen one in person.
Well, you did tonight, and that was on Montana Fouts' 21st birthday. What was it like in the stadium, in the press box, as this was unfolding?
I mentioned it last night when she was pitching that dominant performance she had to start the Women's College World Series versus Arizona. That where I was looking at the press box and say, "Hey, we're witnessing something special." I got that same feeling tonight, but it felt different. She was so aggressive. She did it. She rarely got into a three-ball count. And the difference between good pitchers and great pitchers, and great pitchers and elite pitchers, they rarely fall behind batters. When they do, they find ways to battle back and get into a 2-2 or 3-2 count, and they put batters away when they have an opportunity. You saw that from Montana Fouts tonight. And the biggest thing, Eric, is when Alabama got those 2 runs in the first inning, and I talked about this when we went live last night. Getting runs in the first inning is so vital for pitchers because they go in with a cushion to work with before they even throw a pitch. So it puts them a little bit at ease. They can focus more. They can pitch with confidence. And I felt Montana Fouts, after that performance she had last night, she comes in tonight against UCLA, picks up where she left off, and I felt after Alabama got that 3-run home run from Kaylee Tao to make it 5-0, I felt that I thought that Alabama was going to run rule UCLA.
It had that feel, didn't it?
It had that feel. It really did.
My thoughts were on the game was, you know what? A lot of the Pac-12 people were right. The committee did seeded this incorrectly. Alabama should have been higher seeded than UCLA. There you go. I got to tell you something. They were by far the better team.
They were.
And if Montana Fouts pitches at this level with that offense, I don't see anybody touching them.
I made that exact comment. I made that exact comment to one of the riders upstairs that if Alabama hits like that and Montana Fouts is pitching the way she's pitching, I don't see anybody in this Women's College World Series being Alabama twice, much less once.
And for UCLA, this is another game in the postseason where they're kind of struggling on offense, not sound defensively. I think Michelle Smith said on the telecast, they've made 10 errors in the postseason. That is not. Wow. That's very uncharacteristic.
That's un-UCLA-like.
Now, granted, 5 of those was in that one game against Virginia Tech game 1, but they just, from the get-go, I thought they were on their heels, and I thought Alabama was aggressive early and attacked them. And now the issue they have, Victor, Rachel Garcia gets touched for 6 runs. I actually thought they kept her in a little long just because I once it got to 5-0, our good friend Jen Schroeder was like, I can't wait till we score 6 runs in a row on Twitter, and I responded
and then you clap back with tomorrow,
which, yeah, I mean, there's not a team that was going to touch Montana Fouts tonight. I don't think in softball, in baseball, whatever sport, nobody was touching her.
Nope.
But their offense for UCLA, for whatever the reason, has just not clicked. Considering all the talent they have, Victor, and I know they've had injuries, but they're not an offense that has exploded like past UCLA teams. Now, I think they're going to have to do that on Saturday. And now you have this situation where Megan Faramo, not with the team, they are going to have to ride Rachel Garcia. And you wonder now they got to play a game on Saturday, potentially against Oklahoma, which
those of you who had Oklahoma, UCLA playing Saturday night to avoid elimination, please raise your hands right now. Don't everybody raise them at once.
Think about this. You're guaranteed that either Oklahoma or UCLA will be gone
by Saturday night.
If not both.
Yep.
We could have the last 3 national champions gone as of Saturday night.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just fascinated by that matchup because you've got Oklahoma with the offense, but the pitching we still don't. And then UCLA, this could be a moot point because Georgia could go in there and knock Oklahoma off, and you're like, whoa. But the point is now UCLA's got to play a game on Saturday. And if they win that, you got to win twice on Sunday, and it's probably going to be all on Rachel Garcia. And I think she's capable of doing it. But UCLA is going to have to score some runs here and get some better at bats, Victor. And I'm interested to see how they bounce back from literally getting perfect gamed. Literally.
Honestly, I don't think there was anything UCLA could have done. But the strategy I saw with Arizona last night with their slappers, just trying to get the ball in play, that should have been something UCLA should have implemented. But the thing is, Eric, if you looked at UCLA's lineup tonight, you had Nichols leading off and then Garcia hitting at the 2. So you don't have traditional leadoff 2-hole hitters. You have Nichols who has power, or you have Garcia who has power. So when you don't have that speed to put the pressure on Alabama's defense, you're going to get the same result that will happen with Arizona, is that Montana Fouts is going to overpower you. She's going to use that spin at 70-plus miles an hour, elevated, hitting all 4 quadrants in the zone, and you're going to have another performance Montana Fouts has. And now, this is where winning on Thursday and winning on Friday gives you the advantage if you're JMU and if you're Alabama, because you get to relax on Saturday. You get to see all the chaos unfold, and then knowing that you have to just win once on Sunday, and you're in the championship series.
Jacob chimes in saying Alabama's Mo during the win streak has been scoring in the first inning and letting the pitching carry them the rest of the way. It's been tremendous. By the way, how about some props to Kentucky, who scored some runs off fouls in the Super Regional? How about that?
I know.
Pretty good right now.
I know.
But so that's just an impressive win by Alabama. They're the favorites right now for the national title. They are complete. And Fouts is pitching on a different world right now. I actually have to disagree with my friend Justin McLeod, who was calling for Odyssey Alexander to be the most outstanding player of the World Series.
Montana Fouts, ladies and gentlemen, is your most outstanding player. She's the biggest story. The most outstanding performer is Montana Fouts.
Correct. Now let's get to the Alexander game. And JME, wow, what a crazy 7th inning that game was with Oklahoma State. Give me your thoughts that we had, on the obstruction call first, because if it wasn't for this Alexander play, which we'll talk about, where does it rank all time? Because I know you've made a big argument, I think, on social media that you think it's the greatest play ever in the women's college.
No, I'm just saying that we may need to reopen the conversation.
Well, that conversation's open. Yeah. But if it wasn't for that play, we would be talking about that obstruction call possibly deciding this game. Now, if you want to say that by the rule they got it right, okay. But I got to tell you something. We got a big problem here. We dodged a huge bullet here because I think the intention of the rule is not being put in place. To me, obstruction is when a defensive player obstructs the player from going to the base. That's not what happened.
Blatantly. The keyword, blatantly.
Blatantly. That's not what happened here. First of all, I'm not 100% convinced there was contact there. If there was
no, I couldn't see anything for the replays that ESPN showed.
It was very touchy at best, and it was accidental, and it was the runner initiating the contact, not the defensive player. I think, and again, of course, Christy Cornwell is going to agree with the call. What a shock! Umpires agreeing with other umpires in this freaking sport.
And that's the problem with the sport. And Eric, let me just go on the side. This is the problem that I have.
Go ahead, you do that. I'm going to get a drink. I'm going to do my Stephen A. Smith and get the drink here because I do need to charge up here and let you go here. And since you were there in person and you have been an umpire, you've umpired baseball and softball intramural, granted, but you've umpired. And quite frankly, I actually think you're the most qualified umpire in that stadium right now in Oklahoma City. But as you were.
Here's the problem, Eric. The interpretation of the rule is different from the spirit of the rule. From my vantage point, looking at the replays, there was no obvious intent by the JMU player, probably the third baseman, to impede the progress of the base runner. She was retreating back and was trying to get out of the way to avoid getting called for obstruction. But even that action made was still enough for it to be warranted an obstruction. And that call was a part of a tough seventh inning for this umpiring crew because when Oklahoma State had a run on first, they showed a bunt, they pulled it back, they got the steal of second, and they call it a strike, saying that the batter went around. Where if you clearly saw the replay, the batter goes like this, then pulls back, takes the pitch, and the home plate umpire doesn't signal strike. The umpire just kept his hands back. That's a universal sign that that's a ball. And they call it a strike. And you saw Coach Kenny Gajewski going bonkers on the third base side. So that set the tenor for what ended up being that play with obstruction. Now, JMU was able to, and Odyssey Alexander in particular, were able to weave their way out of that inning. And Oklahoma State, they have the leadoff runner on in the sixth in a 1-1 game. They can't bring him home. They leave him stranded on the second. They got second and third gifted to them with nobody out. You have three cracks to at least get the game tying run home. You get a shallow fly out to left. You have that amazing play by Odyssey Alexander. And you get a pop up to left to end the game. So instead of possibly at least having a tie game with JMU having the last at bat in the seventh, and who knows if they walk off and go on to Sunday.
Right. Now Jacob has chimed in here. Here's part of the rule 9.51. Impedes the progress of any runner who's legally running bases on a live ball. It could be intentional or unintentional. Here's my response to that. Throw it out. Just throw it out. Just throw it out. Throw it out. All right? Those are dorks. Dweebs, that's the problem. You know who writes these rule books? Are dweebs who don't play the game. Don't play the game. That's the problem. We need to get rid of that rule book. Just throw it out. Throw it to the garbage can, burn it up, lit it up, do whatever you want with it. Get rid of it. Let the freaking players decide the game, not some dweepy little rule. Oh, intentional, he bumped in. The defensive player did nothing wrong on that play. Nothing wrong. The runner ran into her. Why is the defensive player being punished for that?
That's the problem. And because if you have players who are very savvy and understanding that rule, and look at it, here's Rob. Rob, thank you for bringing up that point. She was retreating to second with the defensive player and then pursuing the runner, and then she turned and went towards the JMU player. So that's the point. That's why I'm trying to understand. Make these rules make sense. Make it clear and understandable.
And I will say this. I've talked to some umpires, and they do say that part of the problem is these rules leave a lot of room to be desired as far as its interpretation. There's not a clean-cut rule, a clear cut. It's not clear-cut where everybody agrees. And I think that's where we run into problems. Simplify the darn thing. You know what it reminds me of? It's the catch rule in football. Remember that? The whole what's a catch? And we're nitpicking, well, did he have the ball when he was on the ground? This is real simple. This is my logic. If you and I, Victor, are watching a football game on TV or in person, we can tell, hey, is that a catch or not? If everybody pretty much around us says that's a catch, then odds are it's a catch. Same thing, and this applies here. I guarantee, and I saw this on social media. I don't know what the reaction was in the press box or in the stands, but it seemed to me that pretty much the 90+% pretty much said, what are you talking about? That's obstruction. If that's the reaction, that tells you it's a bad rule.
Yep. Because people are.
I'm not mad at you, Jacob. I'm not saying that you're wrong. I appreciate you actually putting the rule up. I'm mad in where this sport gets themselves in trouble with some of this. You know, there was no reason the obstruction rule should have been in place 2 years, 3 years ago. None.
And I think the problem with Eric, is that you have these umpires who have different interpretations of the same rule. And when you have those different interpretations, one umpire here may interpret obstruction different than another umpire may interpret it in a different location. Heck, illegal pitches. I'll give you a perfect example with illegal pitches, and you've talked about this several times. One umpire may interpret it as an illegal pitch. Another umpire may not call it as an illegal pitch.
Isn't it funny that the women's college – when was the last time there was an illegal pitch called in the World Series?
It's been a while.
I mean, you were there in 19. Do you remember one?
Not offhand.
So magically, there's no illegal pitches in the World Series. But yet, I just find that amusing. Like, that's the frustration, right? Sometimes they call it, sometimes they don't. Personally, when you're playing in the postseason, the big stage, let the players decide. Look, we're both NBA guys. You could call a foul in every possession in the NBA. You know what they do in the fourth quarter? Most of the time they swallow the whistle. And I'm okay with that. Some people are like, no, you got to call it like you do in the first quarter. No, let the players decide. Can you imagine if that game is decided, we'd be talking about that obstruction call? That's what you want your sport? And people, casual people, forget the diehards. We're here regardless. We're sheep, right? If you're a casual person, because there's a lot of people right now watching the product that don't normally watch. And they watch that product and they watch that play and they're like, well, that's kind of stupid. Why am I, what's the point of what? Now you're turning people off. And that's to me, that's what people are not grasping.
There are a lot of things that are turning people off about the sport.
And I wish Christy Cornwell, who they've put her in the spot here to be kind of the Mike Pereira, if you will. I think she needs to explain that. Mike Pereira does a great job. The reason why everybody's trying to copy Mike Pereira, Fox came up with this idea first with Mike Pereira. And Mike Pereira, no disrespect to the other people in the other sports, Steve Jabby and all that, but what makes Mike Pereira as good as it gets in TV is he will tell you the referee side of it, but he's also going to explain why the rule maybe is too complicated. Did the ref blow it? Why did he blow it? Why did he get it right? And the issues with the rule. Right. And the rule. He'll explain that, hey, the rule is very complicated. We need that in softball. And I think Christy, as she gets more experience, if she continues to do this role, which I'm for, by the way. I like the fact there is a rules expert. I wish they would kind of introduce her better instead of kind of bringing her in out of nowhere. It's like an RKO.
Hello.
But
yes.
That's, to me, the message that has to be sent. Okay, so you agree with the umpire by rule. Why is it by rule? Because there's a casual fan that's yelling, like, what are you talking about, that defensive player? What did she do wrong? Why?
Exactly.
Anyway.
Talk about what happened, explain the rule, and why it would or would not apply to that particular situation, and move on.
That's right. Well, I know a man who's a good friend and a big fan of Christy Cornwell's being on the deal is joining us now. Good segue. That's the best I got for you. Making his debut back here on the live show, Mr. Justin McLeod. How you doing?
Well, it's 1 a.m. local, and we're totally driving, and I'm not BSing you at all when I say that.
It's 2 a.m. here Eastern time, and I'm drinking a Sprite. So I wanted to bring you in because how many Women's College World Series now you've covered in person, Jessica? Because you've done more. Like, to your credit, you've taken Victor under your wing. You took me under your wing in 2018. So between me and Victor, we've covered 3 Women's College World Series in person. You've covered, I know, how many?
I think I'm up to 6 now.
Oh, man. So that's a good argument. So you're the good guy to ask this question. Let's talk about it. We've just been I'm tired of talking about the obstruction rule. Because thankfully, Odyssey Alexander bailed us out by making an insane play. Where do you rank that play in the history of the Women's College World Series? Victor has asked that question. There are some people that are saying that's the greatest play in the Women's College World Series. My personal opinion, you know where I'm going with this, Justin, because you and I were in the same stadium. I think the Jesse Warren play against Washington's the greatest defensive play I've ever seen in the Women's College World Series. Now, and this is an interesting thing, and Victor, I want you to chime in on this, because when you determine the greatest play, how do you judge a defensive play versus an offensive play? Because a lot of people would say maybe the Lauren Chamberlain walk-off against Tennessee is one of the most famous plays. In fact, here's a little tease. Our Monday guest, which we'll mention here in a little bit who it is, played in the game that Lauren Chamberlain hit that walk-off home run. There's a tease. Thank you. All right. That'll be on our Monday podcast guest, folks. But where do you the big debate, which play is better, the Warren play or the Alexander play? Or if you want to go off the board, since you've been at more games, you could try to go off the board. What do you say?
For me, of the games I've seen and the series I've covered, it's one of those two. I think the thing about the Alexander play for me, after that obstruction call, JMU could have collapsed. Alexander could have collapsed. JMU could have just fallen over, let OK State come back, beat them, do what people thought they would do, kind of idea. So to me, there's an extra element to that play because of that. To the Alexander play, I think the pressure, and by no means am I discounting that Jesse Warren. Like you said, you and I are both sitting there. I'll never forget the way that stadium came alive when Jesse Warren made that catch and then the throwback to first. I don't think half the people actually realized she made the double play for a second. Like, it was one of those. But the thing about Alexander is the pressure was so high, the moment was so big, and literally, Odyssey Alexander decided, I'm just going to do this myself. I mean, and that's what she did. She put it on her back, so to speak. So, I mean, it's tough for me to ever put anything on top of that Jesse Warren play, just because it was so grand. But I think Alexander actually, and maybe in 6 months, maybe I say, well, they're about even. I do think they're close to even because they're both sensational, unexpected, out of the blue. Bam, here I am. But at this moment, I'm probably going to give the edge a little bit to Alexander just because the moment and the pressure was so huge. So I think the play kind of, not that it meant more, but the little bit that it meant a little more.
Well, Eric, you take yourself off mute, sir, that we can hear you.
Very good. I know. I was just saying, Victor, before you answer the question, Jesse James chimes in with Shay Knighton's 3-run bomb. That's one of your favorites, Victor. I think did you talk to her? I think you interviewed Shay about that, didn't you?
You interviewed Shay. I interviewed MJ.
Well, you asked her anyway about that, though.
I did.
We both did. So anyway, that's another great play. So all right. Chime in, Victor. What do you say?
Right now, because of what happened afterwards with Florida State winning, I give the edge to Warren. However, if JMU makes it to the Champ Series, which they're 1 win away from doing so, Alexander's play is going to be probably 1A, 1B with Warren. And if they win it all, then it may trump Warren as the greatest defensive play in Women's College World Series history. Because to Justin's point, it was second and third, and there was one out. If Alexander misses that tag, it's tied at 3, and who knows what happens after that?
Tied at 2.
Tied at 2. Thank you. So if that play happens, who knows?
I feel like the Warren play is more from a degree of difficulty. Might have been a tougher play because that ball was going away from Warren. Some people have argued, well, that bunt wasn't the best from Oklahoma State. I think it's nitpicking.
You still had to make the play.
I agree. No, I agree. I will say this. I said this on Twitter. I think it's the greatest play in JMU athletics history. How do you know? I mean, if you're JMU, there's not a play. I mean, with all due respect to FCS football, nobody cares about FCS football, guys. This is bigger than that. So, if you don't like that, then too bad. But I have a feeling our audience likes that. Look, it's an iconic play, though. It's definitely an iconic play, especially to your point, Victor, if they get to the championship series. I mean, that's a defining play because at the same time, that is a crushing loss for Oklahoma State because they had momentum there. Now they got to bounce back and play the winner of Arizona, Florida State. This could have been their window here to get to that winner's bracket game and be within one game. You're right. That's an iconic play that's going to be remembered for a long time, especially if JMU closes the deal, plays for the championship series, and if Oklahoma State doesn't recover from it. So that's interesting in itself there. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with that. All right, Justin, one other thing before we move on and talk about Saturday, which is, well, technically it is Saturday already, so it's game day, guys. TV numbers came out. DM me during the game. What a weird time for that to come out, by the way. Monster numbers for this yesterday. JMU, Oklahoma, the most watched noon game ever, the first game of the Women's College World Series ever, the most watched Thursday Women's College World Series since 2009. I mean, the sport's on fire. It has defied the other sports. The other sports during this pandemic has dropped in ratings, has struggled, etc. That has not been the case with softball. And the impressive thing, me and Victor keep bringing this up because we cover other sports. It's not like the NBA playoffs are doing badly. They're doing good numbers. And yet, that's the competition for the Women's College World Series is going up against, and they're doing quite well, which is why I argue that women's college softball is more popular than women's basketball, because women's basketball doesn't face this competition. They get good, easy draws. They play the regular season NBA. You know, they have their national title game. It's a lead-in to Sunday Night Baseball. Nowhere near the stiff competition that softball does. Softball by far is more popular. I don't care what anybody says. And it clearly, the numbers have shown, it destroys soccer, lacrosse. No due respect, dear Vic, but volleyball, it crushes it. Like, I am actually to the point, guys, and I want your thoughts on this. I'm actually now offended now that softball gets thrown in with the other Olympic sports. I think it's time. To me, you know, in pro sports, there's this cliche of the big four with the NFL, the NBA, MLB. Depending on where are you at, the fourth sport is the NHL. Some would say the NASCAR, whatever. To me, when it comes to college sports, it's college football, men's college basketball, and I think softball right now is number 3.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I mean, you ask anybody who actually legitimately has watched a variety of college sports or covered a variety of college sports or any of that kind of stuff, college softball always comes in high on the list of sports that they either enjoy or whatever parameter you want to put on it. College softball is always high on the list. And part of it is it's an exciting game. It's a fast-paced game. It keeps your attention. Something going on. Always that kind of thing. And that adds to it. But, it's good competition. Look at Montana Fouts tonight. Look at that JMU OU game yesterday. You're telling me that your average sports fan who just likes watching sports would not be entertained by that game yesterday or by that perfect game tonight?
A lot of people, Greg McElroy, former Alabama quarterback, ESPN football, he's talking about how softball is like his third favorite sport. Jimmy Traina, a lot of people that don't follow softball, they're jumping in. This is a sport. This has become an event that you don't have to be a softball fan to watch it. It does big numbers, prime time. And I believe as early as next year, at the earliest, I think you're going to see a lot of these Women's College World Series games on ABC, especially on the weekend. That's my opinion. I haven't not talked to anybody about it. But based on the big number it did for the Super Regional game, how can it not be on ABC in the future, right?
Yeah. If the people are there, why not? And the thing is, it caught me this evening because I was curious. A big draw for the World Series is Oklahoma. And Oklahoma State is well, but not as big as Oklahoma. You don't see as much orange as you do crimson and cream. So with Oklahoma not being in this winner's bracket, I'm like, okay, well, what is this crowd going to look like? What is the attendance going to be? And Vic can attest, that place was packed tonight. We set an attendance record tonight. It was 12,000 people in that place, and that's when OU does not play. It was a really nice, and it's people who want to see softball. There's some people locally, in this region, this area, who just, not season tickets, but 20 years they've had tickets to the World Series. There's people who just want to see good softball, and there's a lot of people who travel in to see this.
Yeah.
So that it's to that exact same point.
And I think, speaking back on what Justin was saying, Eric, the amount of travel ball teams that we saw in those stands tonight, watching those two games, you don't think that's locked away in the back of my mind saying, I could be the next Odyssey Alexander. I could be the next Kylie Naomi. I could be the next Rachel Garcia. I could be the next Montana Fouts. That is how you get the game to grow and multiply and get those numbers up in terms of viewership, in terms of popularity, in terms of casual conversation.
I agree. And Victor, you remember the podcast we did about, it might have been around a year ago now. One of the hot topics was minorities in sports. Remember that? We've had Tyra Perry on to talk about it and things like that. Is it improving? Things like that. Hello, Odyssey Alexander. You don't think that's going to make a significant difference?
Oh, yes. Yes.
I think that is huge for the sport. Huge statement. And I got to believe that's going to attract a lot of demographics there. Minorities, they're like, yeah, you know what? I could be Odyssey Alexander. To your point, Victor, to your point. That I think I agree 100%. This was a historic night, Justin. Maybe the most unique, memorable Friday night at the Women's College World Series you can remember.
Well,
a perfect game.
Yeah.
First one in 21 years, which, by the way, props to Beth Mowins, who handled it perfectly. You know, she didn't bring it up until the 6th inning. And, of course, this is where Beth is the best because she – you know, and I can relate to this because her and I's philosophy, and I've talked to her about it, we both are very big historians of sports, right? We like to throw in the history of the game in there. People that have and you guys have both interviewed people that have talked about Beth, how she's the historian of softball. She can tell you what happened 20 years ago at the World Series because she was there. And she nailed that perfectly by bringing up, we haven't had a perfect game in 21 years. And they had the graphic ready. Courtney Blades was the last one to do it, and I think that added to the television drama. It was a fantastic job, and at the end, because I think they knew deep down that this game was over, but yet the story was far from over. I thought it was fantastic broadcasting from Beth and how she handled it. She didn't bring it up too early. I know some people are superstitious, you know, and look, if I was doing I'm curious how Gray and Tom handled it. If we get to talk to them, Victor, that's an interesting question, how they handled a perfect game. Because I'll be honest, if I was doing a local game, I usually try to avoid saying it. I would kind of be more creative in saying it, hey, they haven't had a runner on and things like that. But in Bev's case, you're doing a national broadcast.
You have to say it.
And I thought she handled it. She waited till the 6th because that's when it's a legit story. And I thought it just added to the game. So I just rambled off because I just wanted to give props to Beth.
Who doesn't?
Which, by the way, boys, it's a good segue here. Because, you know, we talked about the TV numbers, Justin, and you and I do a lot of TV content. I know there's more TV content coming out on your site at some point here as it keeps coming. There's his eyes roll. He's like, yeah, if I ever can get to it. Because there's a lot of stuff going on. A lot of this focus I've had this year is Kevin Brown kind of being in the first guy to replace Adam Amin in that number 2 chair with Amanda Scarborough. That's the scrutiny. I think the story that will be coming in the coming years is who's going to be the heir apparent to Beth Mowins. That is going to be a very difficult, scrutinized chair for this sport. You know, Marv Albert's retiring in the NBA. Victor knows about this. That's a big discussion in TNT. But the NBA fan, they're kind of hoping it's Kevin Harlan. Maybe it's Ian Eagle, whatever. I don't know who that is in softball. And that's not a knock on the other play-by-play people.
That's just how good Beth Mowins has been and how long she's been doing it at an elite level.
That's going to be I'm very interested, Justin. I don't know if you've got thoughts on that. I don't know who can do that. That's going to be interesting who gets that chair, whatever that is. And look, Beth is far from done. But when that happens, I'm very interested. That's a big decision there. Big decision.
Beth's the best historian the sport of softball has, period. Like, I mean, you know, I try to put myself in that category, but I pale in comparison. Even at my most arrogant point, I pale in comparison. But nobody touches Beth in that category. I mean, even if you take out the play-by-play stuff, nobody touches Beth in her knowledge and the depth of her knowledge of the game. So when that time comes, even though, it's years in the future, but when that time comes, you can't replace her. You just kind of have to have somebody fill it. And truth be told, I don't know who that person is, and I'm not sure that person is somebody who's clear right now. I think somebody's going to emerge by then, yes. But I don't know that it's somebody who's there right now. I think there's options and all that. But like I said, luckily it's so long in the future. But when that time comes, it's not going to be an easy thing to do.
You know you're an icon in a sport where you can do other things, like call NFL games in the regular season. She got call baseball games for the Chicago Cubs. But the one thing that you are known for is being the voice of softball and being the voice of the Women's College World Series. That tells you, one, how great she is at doing everything else, and number two, how elite she has been covering the sport of softball, in particular the Women's College World Series. Every big moment that has happened in Oklahoma City, I feel, has been called by Beth Mowins in some capacity. Every moment, but since the sport has been on ESPN, starting from when it's just a championship game to certain games, then you're expanding into all the games, then you expand into the championship series, best 2 out of 3 in 2005. Every big moment that has happened in Oklahoma City, more often than not, Beth Mowins' voice has been on the call of that moment.
Well, and to back up your point, last year when they were airing a lot of classic games, it was weird. Like there was that one year where Michelle Tafoya called the championship game. Mm-hmm. I think Beth was the sideline reporter. And I'm like, well, this is weird. Right? It's really weird. It would be like if you hired, I don't know, Adman Verk to like call wrestling. How weird would Oh, wait. Never mind.
Too soon?
I'm glad you understood that reference.
I'm glad you said that when Coach Kumar was on the air, sir.
Trust me. Don't even get me started on that. Anyway. By the way, Jacob jumps in. Tom and Gray mentioned no hits, runners on base when reading stat lines, but made a comment that they weren't going to bring it up when watching the ESPN broadcast show the graphics. That's good. I would have done the same.
That is a true Homer broadcast in every sense of the word.
I understand, man. I've been in those shoes. It's not for a perfect game, but like no hitters, you're nervous. Like I don't know why, and people think and it's crazy. I agree, it's crazy. But as a mindset, as a broadcaster, for when you're calling a team's broadcast, you're just scared that you're going to ruin it. We're psychos that way. I don't know why, Victor. I don't know if you were that way, but I am. I was.
Let's just say I've been very creative in not saying the term no. I've said she's had no hits. I don't say the term no hitter. There's the difference.
I usually go with like she's retired 6 innings in a row, stuff like that. I try to kind of die. We're crazy people, Justin, as you can tell. On that,
sound like it's a bad thing.
Yeah.
No.
By the way, how about Terrell Owens congratulating both JMU and Alabama? And in fact, Owens even said, "I'm rooting for you, although I don't think you could beat Alabama." T.O. has become like a softball guru here all of a sudden here, Justin. Maybe you could get him a guest column or something.
I mean, somebody like that. I mean, that tells you that goes to the point we were making earlier about the draw of softball. It's an enticing sport, and I tell you this: JMU may not want to be called Cinderellas right now, but that's the kind of thing that gets people interested in stuff in any sport. Is when you have a team like that making a run, and I mean, there you see it. People like Terrell Owens and whoever else, and I mean the governor of Virginia and Ron Rivera and all those people. I mean, they're all watching JMU now, and it's only going to. I mean, this run's already 2 games in, and you're going to see more people and more people. Trust me, I was around the alumni and the fan section today, out in the parking lot, and I saw the bus after the win and all that. The faithful are growing. Forget the faithful. You've got the random fans who are now on the JMU bandwagon. Mm-hmm. And that bandwagon's getting fuller and fuller too.
Yes, Fabric 86. I read your chat. Yes, I read your chat. Props to you. I'm going to read Jessica Ross's chat here. Pumped for what presumably would be a UCLA-Oklahoma matchup tomorrow. And that's why I want to get you both on here. Granted, because it's about 10 hours from first pitch. Wow. Let's start in order here. Oklahoma, Georgia. Do either of you give Georgia a chance to pull the upset? And what do you think Oklahoma does in the circle?
I think Oklahoma's going to throw Nicole May. I really think they're going to throw Nicole May or G. Juarez. If it was me, I would throw May.
You would throw May. I know that's been a big chat conversation here. Justin, what do you think?
I think they'll throw May.
What you got?
He's got May.
See, and the thing is, if you're OU at this point, you don't have anything to lose because you've already lost. You losing is what you had to lose. But honestly, at this point, I think May, if they're going to have whatever their best chance to win, I think May's going to give them their best chance to win. And to answer your other question, I give Georgia a slim chance, but I do give them a slim chance.
Yeah. That's going to be a tall order. If Oklahoma wins, that sets up Oklahoma, UCLA, guys. The last three national champions, the National Championship Series 2019. Probably if you from an odds standpoint, that was the pick by everybody to play. Mm-hmm. And one of them is going to be gone as of Saturday night if that were to play out that way. Whoa. That Justin, you've been – I mean, that could be one of the most anticipated Elimination Saturday games that I can remember. Can you remember a more – right?
Well, I mean, that, just like you say, pretty much since day one this year when we saw Oklahoma come out with how many thousand runs it felt like against UTEP, like literally on day one. And everybody realized right away how big their offense was. Pretty much since then, the general expectation has been OU, UCLA. Cool. And now we have a good chance of getting that matchup, but it's in the quarterfinals instead of the finals, or even instead of the semifinals. It's for a spot in the semifinals. And the thing is, Megan Faraimo's injury adds a whole other element to that. And so, and so does Oklahoma's bats going absolutely quiet on Thursday. So there's there's a part of each of those teams that's not like it usually is. UCLA's pitching depth is not there, and we saw Rachel Garcia get hit around against Alabama tonight. And then for Oklahoma, the offense just kind of shut down except for that one home run. So I think both of them kind of have a little bit of a question to answer there, and then I think it comes down to who does a better job, and then the winner still has to win 2 on Sunday. I don't think anybody in the world predicted that.
Is it JMU, Victor? You know this.
Yes, it will be James Madison who will have to be beaten twice by either Georgia, UCLA, or Oklahoma for that team to advance to the Champ Series.
Wow. That's unbelievable. But, man, if we get Oklahoma, UCLA, man, the dynamics there is incredible. Which Oklahoma pitcher throws against UCLA? Can UCLA score off the Oklahoma pitchers? Can Rachel Garcia hold off Oklahoma's offense? Wow. One of those teams is going to be gone on Saturday, stunningly.
Guaranteed out on Saturday.
If you're James Madison, who do you root for to play?
I don't think it matters.
You don't think it matters?
If it was a preference, you're hoping that you possibly get Georgia or you get UCLA. I would say Georgia, then UCLA, then Oklahoma. Simply because Oklahoma's already seen you and they can make adjustments. UCLA, they only got one pitcher in Garcia. You don't know how full or empty her tank is going to be. And again, if you're Georgia, look, they're going to pitch. They're going to pitch Avon likely both games if they force the if game on Sunday, and you're going to do the same with Alexander. So you can make adjustments in the first game, and if you're having success,
I definitely agree with you. If I'm JMU, I would be thrilled if it was Georgia. Nothing against Georgia, but I agree for the reasons you just said. I mean, Oklahoma, oh, man, that could be tough because Oklahoma has a bunch of arms. And I wonder if JMU, we keep talking, you're assuming Alexander pitches both games. Keep in mind, and we'll get into more of this on Saturday night, probably about this same time frame.
Yeah, pretty much.
Do they consider throwing Humphrey, their number 2, who, by the way, is pretty good herself? But tell me the matchup. I actually agree with you, though. I like your. I would rather play Georgia first, but if not, I would rather play UCLA just because. At least with UCLA, is you're going to probably know which pitcher you're going to see. Oklahoma, you're going to see a bunch of different arms, and Oklahoma is very good in rematches. But man, that's what a storyline either way, though, because you could have David again, the underdog against the heavyweight on Sunday. That is compelling television. I could tell you that. Like, I'll tell you that if it's Oklahoma JMU or UCLA JMU, that could be one of the most watched Sundays, World Series Sundays in all time. So that's that side of the bracket. Let's go to the other one. Florida State, Arizona. I forgot about this game earlier in the show. Thankfully, Coach Kumar corrected me. I don't know why I was looking ahead. These two teams played 3 times in Tallahassee. There was low-scoring games. Obviously, Justin, I'm very interested to see how TV handles this game. Beth Mowins has been talking about the rumors of Mike Candrea. Is this it for Mike Candrea? I'm curious if ESPN is going to go more into detail. Are they going to speculate more? They're just leaving it alone. But that's going to be part of the storyline, guys, on Saturday is some people, is this the end for Mike Candrea? Could this be the end for him? It starts against Florida State.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like ESPN's not going to leave that storyline alone. I think they should. I mean, I understand you got to talk about it. Trust me, we've talked about it plenty in the press box this week. It's like the worst rumor in the world. So, it's not like I'm not saying ESPN should leave it alone or that ESPN should not talk about it. But I hope they don't run with it like it's. I hope they don't run with it like it's this foregone conclusion and all this kind of stuff. Because I'll say this: Mike Candrea deserves to be able to go out on his own terms. Mike Candrea has done a lot of things in 37 years. Mike Candrea is the kind of guy that he is. Mike Candrea deserves to be able to go out on his own terms. And if ESPN and trust me, I'm a newsbreaker. I would love to break the news of Mike Candrea's impending retirement. The fact of the matter is, I'm not touching that.
Yeah,
Mike Candrea deserves to go out on his own terms.
No,
so I doesn't feel like a foregone conclusion, but there's no way they don't.
I don't think they'll treat it as a foregone conclusion. But I will tell you this: whether it's the Florida State game, or if they win that and play Oklahoma State, or whenever the last game is made, whenever they're out, unless they win the title. But let's just say they get eliminated Saturday or Sunday. That camera shot is going to focus on him at the end.
Yeah.
That, that, and his emotion, and he's been emotional here recently. How we see him when they show the camera, I think people are going to make some conclusions, fairly or not.
And I think, Eric, when we kind of saw it with his comments in the post game, getting emotional and also getting some defensive when questions were asked to him about that in a roundabout way. So that kind of tells you that it's on his mind. But he doesn't want to put the emphasis on it right now. His number one focus is to get his team to Sunday.
Right.
That is his number one focus.
All right. Justin, I know your laptop's on thin ice, so before you disappear from us and get eliminated on Elimination Saturday, what's your prediction for Saturday? Who advances to Sunday?
I think OU beats UCLA and goes. On the other side, it's a little tougher, honestly.
I do agree with you, by the way. I think that side is wide open. You can make a case for all 3 teams, and I would not blink.
Yeah, I mean, I think OK State's probably going to be my pick because it's a safe pick. But yeah, I think that side's much more wide open for me because. OU is still OU on the other side, but on that, Florida State, Sander Cox looked really good on Thursday. Arizona, you never know what you're going to get in the circle or on offense. But if they can click, they could run the table on Saturday. And then you've got Oak State, who, Everly kind of got hit around a little bit today, made a couple of self-imposed errors, self-imposed errors, or what do you want to call them. And Maxwell came in, neither one of them pitched badly. But I'm going to go Oak State, but I'm far less confident in that than I am in my OU pick.
Well, you'll be happy to know, Justin, that Fabric 86 says that you're a smart man by picking Oklahoma.
Fabric 86 just is a good judge of character, obviously.
Very good. All right, I'm going to let you go here because I know your laptop, which has been on all day, is about to die. But quickly, go where they should go for your content.
JustinsWorldSB.com, and then JWS on Twitter and Justin's World of Softball on Facebook.
All right, sir. Get some rest. You got 10 hours. We'll probably get you back at some point this weekend. Maybe Sunday we'll preview the championship and try to talk about where's the gossip? Where are the coaching news? What's happened? Anyway, good night. I'll talk to you later.
Or good morning.
Thanks, Phyllis.
Good morning. All right, Justin McLeod joining us here. I had to get him going because his laptop is about to die. So
yes.
All right, Victor. Your thoughts here on Elimination Saturday here, because we're gonna wrap this up because you got to go to sleep as well for take a nap. I have the luxury of just waking up at like 11:55 a.m. Eastern and just kind of go from there. But give me your thoughts here on Saturday.
Well, I agree with you. I agree with Justin on the JMU side of the bracket. I think OU will win 2 and advance to Sunday. But on the Alabama side, I actually think Florida State can advance. Here's why. Because if you look at the 3 teams, Arizona, Florida State, Oklahoma State, Haley Maxwell notwithstanding, what she did tonight in relief of Carly Eberle was the reason the Cowgirls were able to stay in a position to make it a 1-run game. I have a feeling that Kaylin Arnold, with her experience transferring in from Tennessee, I would not be surprised, Derek, if she got the start in that Arizona game later on today. Gamble that you could save Sandercock or bring her in to close the game, let her get some momentum, and then she starts that final game later on tonight versus Oklahoma State. So I got Florida State advancing to take on Alabama, and I got Oklahoma with a rematch versus JMU.
Man. You make good points about Florida State. I like their arms. They've done this, and they've done this before. That staff has done this before. They did this.
The last team to lose game 1 and win the trophy at the end, Florida State, 2018.
I would know. I was there.
You were there.
Wow, Kelly Northern saying, "Good point, Vic. Might have to rethink my pick."
Wow. I'm just saying. Hey, just saying.
Because she was going to Oklahoma, Arizona. Florida State has the arms because they could go by committee too.
Yes,
it's not like they depend on complete game. You're right; they could go Sandercock. The interesting thing is Florida State. All those pitchers have faced each other. Florida State, Arizona's seen all their FSU's pitchers. FSU's seen the Arizona pitchers. That's why I think Coach Kumar thinks it might be a little more high scoring than people think because of that. It could come down to some defense too. I think that's a legit argument. I'm really interested to see how Oklahoma State, Victor, comes out early in their game. Do they get over the way they lost? Or are they still kind of going through the motions? Plus, they're the last game of the night.
They are the last game of the night. So you're sitting all day in your hotel room, just letting that loss linger. And Coach Christy Fox, when we had her on our Thursday night / Friday morning episode, alluded to that fact. You want to get on the field as quick as possible because the longer you're sitting and waiting for your next game, the more those thoughts you let them stew and marinate in your mind. And here's the thing, Eric, but I talked about this as well. The fact that JMU put pressure on Eberle early, she made a couple throws that were a little errant, or she made the play, she took a hard sprint and tossed the ball underhand to first. Don't be surprised if the winner of Florida State, if the top of the order put some pressure on them with that small ball and maybe force Eberle to to prove to them that she can field those plays.
Kelly's got a question for you here, Victor. Why not Oklahoma State?
I'm concerned. Here's my thing. I'm concerned about Eberle and her ability to make those the first. And plus, she got hit on that ankle. She was able to get out about an inning and plus more, and then you bring in Maxwell out of the bullpen, and she kept the game open for Oklahoma State. My concern with Eberle, she gave up a run early against JMU, and Georgia tagged her up a little bit. Yes, they won the game, but Georgia did get some hits off of her and had opportunities, but they left her in a scoring position. You can't make those types of mistakes if you're playing in Arizona with the power that they have in the lineup, and a Florida State team, which we have seen, Eric, have been opportunistic late in games. But I would counter that by saying Oklahoma State has players in their lineup of Pennington, Febrey, Busby, Kali Ayomi, Cheyenne Factor. They have bats that can change the game with one swing. And I think their speed game is very underrated too. But again, you can make the case for all three, as you talked about on the Alabama side of the draw. Would it surprise me if Oklahoma State won that final game and plays Alabama on Sunday? No. Would it surprise me if Arizona or Florida State wins two and make it to Sunday? No.
I'm curious what kind of crowd they're going to get for that game too, especially if it follows an quote-unquote Oklahoma UCLA. Is there going to be a hangover? Will what kind of atmosphere we'll get? It's kind of interesting. I'm going to be honest with you. This is more a sentimental because my head kind of says Florida State for the reasons you said, Victor, but there's a part of me that kind of says Arizona. And I don't have a really good softball reason to say, because I think there's some question. I don't think they're going out quietly.
You don't want to let Kendria go out quietly. They will not let Kendria go out 0-2. I think if you're Arizona, you do not want to go 0-2 again in what could be Coach Kendria's last ride in Oklahoma City.
I think if they can win that game against FSU, if I'm guessing they're going to go Denham. I think they could shut down Florida State offense. They're not a dynamic offense, explosive offense. And they could ride that momentum, squeak it out against Oak State. Next thing you know, there's Sunday. Maybe. But again, I'm being sentimental here. And I think all three could win there. And then I'm going to go Lee Corso here and say not so fast. I'm going with the champs. I'm going UCLA. But you know what? First of all, because everybody's picking Oklahoma. The chat room, you, Justin. I don't like that. You know I don't like that. I don't like when everybody agrees because, as Bill Walton says, when everyone's thinking, everybody's thinking the same thing. Nobody's thinking right. I completely botched that because it's almost 3 a.m. here in the East Coast. And I'm not going to bet against Rachel Garcia. And I am still not 100% convinced, Victor, that any of those Oklahoma pitchers beat a Rachel Garcia in a pitcher's duel. Because I just don't see her getting rocked by Oklahoma. I can be proven wrong, and Oklahoma puts up a big spot. I know Alabama scored, but especially after tonight, I don't remember Rachel Garcia having 2 bad starts in a row. And I'm not going to go out. I'm not going to bet against a 2-time National Player of the Year and a champion. I think Oklahoma can beat them, but I don't think it's going to be a 10-8 game. I think it's if they're going to. Can they win a 2-0, 2-1 game? That's the question I've had for a while. We'll see.
Which means if you're a Georgia fan, please rejoice because ain't nobody giving you a shot against Oklahoma.
And that's kind of the other thing that scares me. The Oklahoma still has to win that game. That's why I'm picking UCLA because, I'm going to tell you something. If Wilson could get a couple of zeros early,
yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And all of a sudden, we're in the 3rd inning.
It's the pressure. Here's the thing. Georgia is playing with house money because everybody expected them to get blown off the field against Oklahoma, just like everyone expected them to be blown off the field against Oklahoma when they played in the regular season in Athens. All the pressure is on Oklahoma. And I will leave you with this final stat before we sign off. Teams who have scored first in this year's Women's College World Series are 6-0. And 3 of those games, the runs have been scored in the first inning. So if you're Georgia and if you're Lou Harris-Champer, if you could put 2 runs on the board early off of Oklahoma, that pressure, that gorilla that's already on their shoulders is going to feel like King Kong. If you could put a 2 spot on the board for Mary Wilson A-Man.
And you follow that up with a couple of zeros. You follow that up with a couple zeros, man. Holy smokes. Everybody's thinking, oh my, what's going on?
Everybody's going to be pressing. And when everybody's pressing, everyone's going to try and be the hero. And when you try to be the hero, you try and do too much. And that's when you overswing. That's when you get to easy outs for the pitcher.
Jessica Ross makes a good point here. Think about this. Oklahoma, this historic team we were going in with this historic offense. But also, Oklahoma going 0-2 against 2 unseeded teams would not – oh, my goodness. If they were to lose to Georgia and go 0-2 – that
would be the most disappointing performance by number one overall seed in the history of the women's college. Look, we've seen 1 seeds go 0-2. That's happened.
I'm not saying it's going to happen, but
we're not. No. We're not implying that it's going to happen. But we've never seen a 1 seed as dominant as Oklahoma possibly go 0-2. And the 0 and the 2 are against the 2 unseeded teams in the Women's College World Series. With the National Player of the Year, with the National Freshman of the Year, with several first-team All-Americans. I'm just saying, OU fans, if it gets to the 4th or 5th inning and it's 2-0 Georgia or 3-1 Georgia,
you're pressing. You're pressing at that point. It's human nature. I agree with you. Oklahoma, if they can get off to a fast start, then I think they're fine. But if it's you're scratching it out here, look out. Look out.
Whoa, how about Jessica Ross? Jessica's going a step further. She says, I'm going further than saying to be the worst in Women's College World Series history. That will be up there as one of the worst postseasons in sports history. Wow. The only other top seed, Eric, I can think of going winless in the. You remember the Dallas Mavericks when Dirk Nowitzki won the MVP and they lost to Golden State?
Yeah. 06, 07, I think it was, yeah.
06, 07. Granted, they didn't get swept, but
lost to 1 versus 8, right?
Mm-hmm.
I thought you were going to go with the Lightning a couple years ago. Got swept by Columbus in the first round.
Thank you. That's another good one.
But it's hockey. Who cares?
It's not exactly.
Man, let's just put it to this way: if Oklahoma loses to Georgia, this will be a topic tomorrow night. Let's just leave it as that, and we'll see. I don't think it's going to happen, but man, whoa. That would be something. And there's going to be people in this chat room that will not handle this very well. It could be a lively chat room tomorrow night if that were to happen. By the way, this has been an amazing group. Thank you, everybody. You people rock. 2:48 a.m. Eastern. I don't know where. I'm sure some of you are not on the Eastern time zone, but 2:48 a.m. Eastern, 1:48 Central. Incredible questions for Coach Kumar. Really, thank you.
Yes.
I think that understatement. I really appreciate it. I think Victor appreciates it. I appreciate it. Thank you. We'll be back here tomorrow night. We're going to be joined by Elisa Goller. Speaking of Georgia, the Dogs, Elisa Goller, former Bulldog, now a head coach. We'll have her scheduled to be our guest celebrity, or I don't know if it's celebrity guest, but it's a guest coach, analyst.
Yes,
for the live show. Thank you. And we have another one for Sunday night. Jacob's bragging. He's in Pacific time zone.
Only 11:48 where Jacob is.
That's right. But we're going to have another guest on Sunday night. Plus on Monday on the podcast, we're going to have a special guest. Madison Shipman will be our Monday guest on the podcast. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast. Don't assume that you're just, we're going to have the live show Sunday night. Whenever the last game is over, we'll preview the National Championship Series. We'll have a guest. We're working on that as well, multiple guests for that to preview the championship. But also on the Monday podcast, we're going to preview the championship series, but also be joined by Madison Shipman, Tennessee great, ESPN analyst great, going to talk to her on Monday. So we got a lot still to go here, folks. It's been tremendous. Yes. Excellent show. Like the candid discussion. That is why you come here. We will definitely be candid here at In the Circle. We don't dodge the topics as best as we can. But we'll see. Victor, final thoughts here, sir. As you've had this is a special night into the morning, and pretty good night for you. You got to see one of the greatest plays in the history of the women's college football. So you got to see a perfect game. Pretty good setup for Saturday. If
Thursday and Friday were the appetizers, Saturday is going to be the main course, because we can see conceivably the last 3 national champions all get bounced by the end of Saturday night, ladies and gentlemen. And we can see 3 of the top 5 teams in the country get bounced. It's going to be fun. And if you will excuse us, we had to get some sleep or nap and get ready for
so
said
do all
festivities.
of you, by the way. So do all of you tuning in. You get some rest. We want those questions tomorrow. Maybe we can figure this out in the future, or the short period of time. But, hey, thanks to head coach Kirin Kumar, Miami of Ohio head coach, for joining us. Thanks to Justin McLeod for joining us. Thanks to Vic in Oklahoma City for joining us. I'm Eric Lopez, back here in the East time zone in the In the Circle studios. Have a good nap. Good morning. Good night. Wherever. See you tomorrow night around this time in the morning. Enjoy Elimination Saturday. Victor, last words.
Good night, Canada. Bring coffee. Be ready for tomorrow. Good night, y'all.